They're going to take a step back and not be a college football playoff team. Anonymous coaches sound off on Tennessee. Let's get the worst take and plenty more here on a Wednesday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, good Wednesday morning, everybody. Welcome into Locked On Vols, your number one spot for Tennessee football news and entertainment 5 days a week right here on Locked On Vols, everywhere you get your podcasts, completely free and, again, available wherever you find them. I'm Eric Cain, your host of Locked On Vols, and so happy to have you guys along for the ride. Got a fun show coming up here today for you everydayers. Couldn't do the show without you. Anonymous coaches sound off on the University of Tennessee. I read one of the takes in the open there. We're going to get into a couple more and have a broader discussion on what everybody thinks or perceives this Tennessee team to be in 2025. We're going to take a closer look at the Knoxville Regional for Tennessee baseball this week in segment number 2, and then Josh Ward checking in, discussing a lot of things from Destin, Florida. He's not in Destin. I worded that incorrectly. But Josh Ward for Ward Wednesday in segment number 3, talking about a lot of the topics being discussed in Destin, Florida for the SEC spring meetings. All that and more here on a Wednesday show. All right, so one of my favorites off-season, they do it a couple of different times, but one of my favorite off-season stories that I like to read is over on Athlon Sports. And they speak to coaches anonymously. It's on the record, but their name is redacted, if you will. You know, what does this coach have to say about this coach? What does this coach have to say about this opposing SEC quarterback? What does this coach have to say about this rival defensive coordinator? It's juicy stuff. And I mean, no coach wants to give bulletin board material. No coach wants to be up there and give any reason for any more offseason inspiration for another team that's on your schedule. But when they retract the names, it's some juicy content. And so, again, Athlon Sports does this a couple of times throughout the offseason. I think this one was published sometime last week. But I'm going to go and read you a couple of quotes from anonymous coaches on the University of Tennessee. I believe these are on anonymous SEC coaches on the University of Tennessee. I'm going to read the one that I read in cold open here, and we're going to discuss it real quick. Quote, they're going to take a step back, and they won't be a playoff team this season, but the quarterback play won't be awful. Okay, so you're just saying that Tennessee's not going to be a college football playoff team because it's hard to be a college football playoff team every single year? I can buy that. I mean, Tennessee certainly lost some key contributors, don't get me wrong, but if quarterback play is not going to be awful, is quarterback play going to be the reason Tennessee is not a college football playoff team? That would be my follow-up question. A couple of these other quotes in here will address a little bit of that. Here's one. Quote, losing Nico Iamaleava isn't good. They're not replacing him with a more talented quarterback, and they're losing the quarterback who ran their system in a playoff game. But because of the way everything went down, I don't think anyone blames the program or Josh Heupel. With the turnover on defense, Nico leaving makes a transition year a lot easier to stomach. Okay, so what is a transition year? Is a transition year 9-3? Because yeah, I could stomach a 9-3 season. Is a transition year 8-4? That'd be tough. Is a transition year 7-5? Good Lord, it better not be. You know what I'm saying? But I do agree with a lot of what this coach had to say in this quote. Losing Nico isn't good. They're not replacing him with a more talented quarterback, and they're losing a quarterback who ran their system in a playoff game. I agree with all that, okay? Is Joey Aguilar as talented as Nico Iamaleava? No, at least at this point, no. Did Nico Iamaleava run your system, run your offense in a college football playoff game? Yes. The answer to that, true or false, is true. Again, I continue to say this, the caveat, is Nico the reason Tennessee did this? Is Nico the reason Tennessee? No. Nico was fine. Tennessee was built around a good run game and a good defense. It was 90s-style football, and I love it. But still, this is true. You are replacing a quarterback that started every football game for you and started a quarterback for you in the college football playoff. So all that is true, but this is the first one that mentions the defense. Quote, I don't think anyone blames the program or Josh, and with the turnover on defense, Nico leaving makes a transition year a lot more easier to stomach. Transition on defense. Sure, James Pierce was a first-round draft pick, and I'm not trying to diminish his role because he was one of the greatest pass rushers college football's had the past couple of years, okay? Even when he wasn't sacking the quarterback, he was disrupting the quarterback, he was hurrying the quarterback, he was touching the quarterback, he was hitting the quarterback, he was being a pest, okay? So I'm not trying to diminish that whatsoever. But you're losing James Pierce, Keenan Peely was your starting middle linebacker. He missed half the year. Will Brooks was a safety, and he had a good year. He had a really, really good year. But of those three, and this might sound crazy, this might sound completely nuts, and let me know at _Cainer and the Locked On Vols that just how crazy I am right now. Would the greater impact of a loss be James Pierce or Will Brooks? Think about it. Think about it. Who's the better football player? James Pierce. Who's going to have a better pro career? James Pierce. Who's more athletic? James Pierce. Who had the better college career? James Pierce. I'm not denying any of that, but think about this. Based on his sacks taking a step back last year, I'm not saying he had a bad year, but statistically he took a step back last year. And based on all the players that Rodney Gardner and them rotate up front, especially at the edge as well, compared to Will Brooks playing a ton, everybody's scared because a walk-on defensive back was going to be your starting safety. Everybody was mad. Everybody was furious. Just, how can this happen in year 4? How can this happen in year 4, right? I mean, that was the talk when Will Brooks went on to be your best safety, and he had a really good year, and he tied for the SEC lead with, what was it, guys? 4 interceptions. Well, I mean, he had a really good year. So think about that. As crazy as it sounds, the bigger impact on the defense might be losing Will Brooks. And again, I could be crazy right now off the beaten path. But I don't think that's outlandish, simply because Will Brooks played his position very well. James Pierce did too, but you have other guys who played as well. Joshua Josephs played, Caleb Herring played, and then, all those defensive linemen up there played a lot of snaps. So anyway, that's just a fun sidebar of this conversation. But Pierce, Peely, who missed half the year, and Will Brooks, I mean, sure, Omar Norman-Lott, Amari Thomas, they were part of that rotation. But again, you played Jackson Moy, you played Bryson Eason, you played David Hobbs, you played Dominic Bailey, you played Tyree West. We can play this game all day, right? All this turnover on defense, I'm not buying into that because Tennessee returns so much more. So much more. Let's go on to another quote here. Quote, "The offense won't fall off a cliff. That system is effective at adjusting for personnel, even at quarterback." Well, that's a good quote. I wouldn't say this offense has gone off a cliff, but it certainly has not been as effective the last 2 years than it was in year 1 and year 2 with Hendon Hooker, Alex Golish, and the marriage with Josh Heupel. Now, it's certainly had its moments. It's not been horrible. It's not been as bad as everybody makes it out to be, but certainly look at the explosive pass plays, look at the red zone efficiency, all those things that we can track on paper, okay? Numbers are down. But this is a good quote here. I mean, the offense won't fall off a cliff. The system is effective at adjusting for personnel, even a quarterback. That's good. That's what you want to hear when Tennessee's having a quarterback change. And then the final one I want to read off here. The bigger question, even after Nico, again about defense, is replacing the defensive starters who carried them in big games. The secondary's legit and probably their strength right now. 100%. I agree with that. Give me a healthy Jamal McCoy, Ricky Gibson, Colton Hood, okay? Jalen McMurray, those are your corners. Andre Turrentine, we got questions at safety, I recognize that. And then Boo Carter, your strength is your safety, is your secondary. I agree with that. But again, I'm going back to, I just don't understand this. Even the bigger question after replacing Nico is replacing the defensive starters who carried them in big games. Last I checked, Jamal McCoy was really, really good. Sure, is he hurt this offseason? Yeah, but he's going to play a lot of football next year. He had a great year. Boo Carter had a pretty good year. You had young linebackers. You had a lot of guys up front that rotated in and out. I just don't understand. Again, this is from a national perspective. You look at Tennessee, you say, oh, Nico's gone. Oh, Dylan Sampson's gone. Oh, James Pierce is gone. Oh, they lost 4 starters on the offensive line. That team's going to be bad. But when you're on the ground floor and you realize that the offensive line dealt with injuries and wasn't playing as good as it's played in years past, it's okay a little bit. It's like, okay, well, Wendell Moy, he's going to be pretty good. We'll see about Sam Pendleton. We'll see about William Satterwhite, but Wendell Moy is going to be pretty good. Lance Hurd, if you take any type of step, it's going to be a significant improvement. David Sanders got all the talent in the world. There are going to be some growing pains there, but he's got all the talent in the world. So the offensive line, okay. Running backs by committee, it always has been outside of last year, okay. Wide receivers, you had a really, really good one in Dante Thornton, but he played 30% of the snaps. He was barely on the field. So, again, these quotes, which really, outside of one, And I agree with talking about a college football playoff quarterback now being removed from the system and how that's not ideal, because it's not ideal. But for the most part, these quotes are talking about how Tennessee's defense is going to take a step back. I just don't see that. I don't see that at all. Do you see that? Please correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I'm in May. This is a football podcast, and we're talking football in May, okay? So I could be completely off base here, but I just don't see how this defense is going to take a big step back. I just don't see it. I don't see it at all. Would love to hear from you at _Cain or at Locked On Vols. Anonymous coaches sound off on the University of Tennessee. I love this article. I love when the Athlon does this a couple of times in the offseason. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Those were 4 quotes from coaches around the SEC on the University of Tennessee. All right, when we come back, let's take a look at the Knoxville Regional. Who's going to be here? What are their strengths and potential issues for the University of Tennessee? That's coming up next right here on Locked On Vols. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have even more ways to bet smart and win big. Again, we're talking NBA playoffs right here. Big-time Atlanta Braves fan. Watch those games every single day. I know who's hot. I know who's not. And it's easy for me to throw them into a same-game parlay when they are heating up in that lineup, and you can as well. Check it all out today at FanDuel Sportsbook. New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up, and here's why. You head on over to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets. Not bad, right? FanDuel.com, safe, secure, easy-to-use app as well, the FanDuel Sportsbook app. First bet $5. If it wins, $200 in bonus bets. Not bad. Make every moment more with FanDuel. It's official sports betting partner of the NBA, and it's where you can make every moment more. Tennessee baseball is back at Lindsey Nelson Stadium for postseason baseball this weekend, hosting 4th seed Miami of Ohio, which Tennessee will square off with at 6 o'clock on ESPN Plus, coming up on Friday night. And then, of course, the 2 seed Wake Forest and the 3 seed Cincinnati. Looking a little bit deeper into the regional on some potential problems that could be created for Tennessee. We'll kind of go, we'll go team by team. We'll first start with the number 4 ranked seed, or the number 4 seeded Miami of Ohio. Again, it won the MAC to get into the tournament. Lost 4-3 to Kentucky on April 15th. That's the only SEC team that had played this year. It finished tied for first with Kent State, 23-7 regular season record. Won the MAC tournaments, beating Toledo last Saturday. Miami is ranked 139th in terms of strength of schedule, and again played one SEC team. It was a 4-3 midweek loss against Kentucky on April 15th. 35-21 is the record. Number 80 in the RPI, so 139 in strength of schedule, but 80 in the RPI. And again, it won the MAC to get here. The ace, which Tennessee is certainly going to see on Friday night, is redshirt sophomore righty Cooper Katsky. 11-1 on the year. That is very impressive. Tony Vitello said it on Tuesday. I don't care what level you're pitching at, where you're pitching at. If you have 11 wins in a season, that is really, really good. 11-1 in 15 starts, a 2.66 ERA, 81 innings in a third. His whip was .98, 69 strikeouts, 26 walks. So not a whole lot of strikeouts, especially when you compare it to the likes of Liam Doyle. Started 9 times, 15 appearances this year, 2 complete games, 11 outings of 5 innings or longer, which is really impressive, and opposing batting average of 186. So the arm that Tennessee is going to face is a pretty good one in Cooper Katsky. Now, he's not going to see, this will be the first time he's seen a lineup like what he's going to see, but that is kind of notable. The offense, Evan Applewick, 19 home runs, 71 ribbies, 62 runs scored, leads the team in slugging percentage and OPS. Really, really good bat from the infield. 319 is the batting average for him. A couple other guys are hitting well over 300, so the offense is pretty good as well. So yeah, I mean, it's a veteran-led club that just had to win the MAC in order to punch its ticket. So it's pretty good. And Tony Vitello said on Tuesday that he will probably go with Liam Doyle on Friday, Marcus Phillips on Saturday, and then so on and so forth. So that is kind of noteworthy. A potential matchup for Tennessee on Saturday could be the number 2 seeded Wake Forest. 36-20, RPI is 30th in the country. Strength of schedule is Sorry I had that here. I thought I did. I guess I don't. But RPI is number 30, and they finished 16 and 14 in the ACC, which was good enough for 8th place. Wake Forest, of course, hosted a regional last year, was like the number 14 or 15 seed, ended up losing to Evansville, right? That was that regional that had Wake Forest hosting East Carolina. And I believe, if I'm not getting my years mixed up, or maybe East Carolina hosted it. Yeah, it was East Carolina that hosted it, and Wake was the 2, and then Evansville was the 4, and Evansville won. Nonetheless, Wake Forest, pretty good program. Don't get me wrong; it's been pretty good the last couple of years, and it had to get there by getting an at-large bid. So Kay Lewis, one of the better hitters in this order for Wake Forest. 392 is the average, really, really good. 129 total bases, third in home runs with 11. 5 Wake Forest players have 10 or more home runs, so the offense is pretty good. It's thumping. 57 RBI on the season. One of 3 Demon Deacons that have 57 or more RBI on the year. That's really good. Again, this offense is the thing to keep in mind about with Wake Forest. You've got Jack Winay, who leads the team in home runs with 14 and RBI with 59. On the mound, which Wake Forest will probably throw him in game 1, so Tennessee probably won't even see him, is sophomore righty Blake Morningstar. 6-1 on the year, 13 starts, 14 appearances, 2.71 ERA, 73 innings, 1.14 whip, 82 strikeouts, 25 walks. Tennessee probably won't see him, at least because they'll throw him on a Friday night, but Tennessee could see a familiar face, former Tennessee pitcher Matthew Dallas, who was a freshman here last year, made a couple of starts, never panned out, left in the transfer portal while the team was in Omaha. He went 4-1 in 13 starts at Wake Forest this season, 5.09 ERA, 53 innings pitched, 59 strikeouts, 28 walks. So-so year, but hey, wouldn't that be something? Matthew Dallas getting another start at Lindsey Nelson Stadium, but for the opposing team in Wake Forest. So again, offense is the thing to look out for Wake Forest potentially. And then finally, we'll look at Cincinnati here before we get into Josh Ward for Ward Wednesday. Cincinnati, 32-24, number 34 in the RPI. You've got 21st strength of schedule, so not bad there. 16-14 in the Big 12, and they finished 8th as well. Thing you got to know about Cincinnati, stolen bases. They've stolen 128 bags on the year. That is tied for like 16th in the nation. That is a lot of stolen bases. And obviously, Tennessee's had some issues holding runners on, managing the run game. So if Tennessee squares off with Cincinnati, that's something to look out for. If Tennessee squares off against Cincinnati, especially with Marcus Phillips, who's grown in this regard, but that's been a shortcoming of his, that is something to be mindful of as well, for sure. 21 strength of schedule. Let's see here. Beat Texas Tech in the Big 12 tournament, then lost to West Virginia, which was the number 1 seed. They won Big 12 series at Kansas State, Kansas, Oklahoma State, Arizona State, Texas Tech, and UCF, and dropped the series against TCU, West Virginia, Arizona, and BYU. On the mound, you have Nathan Taylor and redshirt senior Kellen O'Connor. Those two have combined to start 25 games, 30 appearances. Nathan Taylor, 6-2 is the record, 3.67 ERA. O'Connor, 3-2 is the record, 4.68 ERA. So kind of a 1-2 punch there at the top of the lineup. And then with the bats, you've got Carrington Cross, who leads Cincinnati with a batting average of 3.99. Leads it with OPS, slugging percentage, hits, runs scored as well. He's second in home runs with 12. You got a couple of other guys who got some pop in that order. But for Cincinnati, it is a very talented team, or I guess a very well-rounded team, but they run very much. They're very aggressive on the base path. So that is an inside look at the Knoxville Regional. Those are some of the teams Tennessee's going to be playing against. Of course, we heard from Joe Healy, D1 Baseball, on yesterday's show, kind of giving you more baseball content leading up into the weekend for the Knoxville Regional. When we come back, though, we're going to talk football with Josh Ward, what's going on in Destin for the SEC spring meetings, and what does he think about this Knoxville Regional draw for the University of Tennessee? That's coming up next with Josh Ward, who's got a birthday coming up. He'll tell you about it here in a moment. Josh Ward here on Ward Wednesday, and the SEC spring meeting is ongoing in Destin, Florida this week. A lot of topics of conversation. What do you think was in the A block of topics this week for the administrators from each school?
Well, I think it's the college football playoff format, going to 16, getting the automatic qualifying spots. And then if that happens, then deciding, okay, do we make that move to 9 games in conference play, assuming the money comes with that? And that's a must. They're not going to go from 8 to 9 games without getting the money they believe would make it worth it. But I think that's coming if the SEC is willing to make the move, if the playoff is expanding as so many expect. So I think that's where the conversation started. I think there was an order of operation while the conversation has taken place about 9 games in conference play. And Eric, my goodness, we've been talking about this for years. But before Texas and Oklahoma arrived, we were talking about, go to 9 games. And then they had the 2-year gap where they were able to set the 8-game schedule up, and it's the same opponents 2024 and then this upcoming season 2025 to allow more time to decide on whether they go to 9 games. So hopefully we are approaching the finish line, because while it has provided us content and it's created conversation and topics to discuss, it's been years. It's been presidential terms that we've gone through talking about the same thing, 8 or 9 games in SEC play.
I remember coming to the radio station early in the morning and kind of game planning on my notepad there, the 6-3 model, the 1-7 model. I mean, this was back in like 2022. I mean, I was still working in the radio station. Here we are in 2025, and at least at the time of this recording, no finality in this conversation. So I'm with you, man. Like, we've been talking about this for years, and hopefully the money's there so they can go ahead and just do it. And with an expanded playoff, I don't think it's going to hurt anything, because you can make the argument that why on earth would you do it if you stayed at 12 teams in the college football playoff? But I think it's going to expand to 16 teams, so I don't think it's that big of a deal. Do you think it's good for college football or college football playoffs for the SEC and the Big Ten to be pushing for 4 automatic qualifiers?
Not necessarily, but I don't think it will matter much, if at all. And I say that because in a 16-team format, knowing how much money and the advantage of resources the SEC and the Big Ten will have, I think they will almost always have 4 teams each in the top 16. I would bet that every year for the SEC, and I think that's probably going to be the case for the Big Ten. So there might be a year where the 4th team from the Big Ten is ranked 17th, 18th, 19th, but I don't think we're going to get past that point too much. So I don't love the idea of it. I don't love that they're just guaranteed this amount of spots, but it's a 16-team playoff. If we're being realistic, it's a power 2. We have power 4 conferences. Really, it's a power 2, the SEC and the Big Ten. Then it's the Big 12 and the ACC, and then you have everybody else. So in a 16-team field, if you have a power 2, well, it's realistic. It's most likely every year that the SEC and the Big Ten will have half of those teams. Really, they'll have more than half of those teams when you combine the 2 conferences.
Well, we said on a normal year, unless it's just something crazy, the 4 highest conference champions, let there be light. The 4 highest conference champions would get the first, the bye, the first round bye, and that was all great. But then it was not a normal year in terms of the first year of the college football playoff expansion. It was a group of 5 that got the 3 seed, and then you had the Big 12 that got the 4 seed. But both of those teams were ranked 12th and 9th, but they got first round byes and being seeded 3 and 4. Yeah. The college football playoff committee has said, hey, we're just going to seed them through the straight rankings. That makes the most sense. What could have been, Josh? How different could Tennessee's season have been with a home playoff game against SMU last year? Because that's what would have happened if they seeded it this way moving forward like they did this past year.
Yeah, I think Tennessee most likely wins that game. I can't sit here and say Tennessee's guaranteed to win it. I don't know that. Nobody does. But obviously I like Tennessee's chances at home against SMU better than what we saw on the road against Ohio State, which was the best team in college football. And the next round, Tennessee probably loses to Georgia, but hey, who knows? Again, with the Carson Beck injury. So, that's the way it should have been. Yeah, it only took common sense to figure that out. And then it took 1 year of seeing the results of moving teams up, allowing teams that didn't earn one of the top 4 seeds to be given one of the top 4 seeds, for others to say, wait a minute, this needs to change. And they did that. So I've seen it brought up, though, that, hey, here's another Tennessee rule where they got jobbed and then the rule changes right after the fact. And you can make that case here. Tennessee was not winning the national championship, though, this past season. Well, we don't know that Tennessee would have won at home because Dylan Sampson still would have been dealing with the same injury, and that would have affected the offense. But again, at the very least, Tennessee would have had the chance to have a home playoff game, which would have been a great thing for the school, for UT, the SEC. But now they just got to get back to that spot. Can they do that this year? In the next couple of years? In the next couple of years, they'll probably have an even better chance if this playoff field does expand.
Yeah, I mean, December home football in Neyland Stadium, you got to go all the way back to 2020, and that was not a fun ride. But I mean, it signed me up for some December home playoff football.
It would have been excellent. It would have been excellent for everybody. I mentioned the school. It would have been excellent for the city. I think for our business, would have taken away some travel that you probably didn't want to make to Columbus. So, it would have been great. And if Tennessee had won the game, as they would have been favored to do, then could have had a playoff victory. And let's say that they win that game and then lose in the next round. So they're still out by the second round. You still have a playoff win. It creates a different feeling, I believe, going into the offseason. That transfer portal window would have been different in terms of maybe some of the drama that occurred there. Maybe it would have been delayed. Again, we're talking about things we don't know. But, it just obviously would have been better for Tennessee. It would have had a better feeling going into the offseason. But that doesn't change what Tennessee needs to do now or moving forward.
Tennessee baseball, postseason baseball in Knoxville, okay? A week ago today, didn't think that was really going to happen. I guess a week and a half ago today, really would not have bet money on that for happening. But Tennessee goes down to Hoover in the SEC tournament, picks up some big wins against Alabama, Texas, big RPI points. Mm-hmm. And the way the cookie crumbles, Tennessee gets that 14th overall seed and will be hosting Cincinnati, Wake Forest, and Miami, Ohio in Knoxville this weekend for the Knoxville Regional. What can you say about Tennessee's baseball squad, what they showed down in Hoover, and kind of where they are entering the NCAA tournament this next phase?
Well, I think Tennessee once again showed its potential down in Hoover with that win against Texas, the two wins, getting two against Alabama and Texas. That showed what this team is capable of. I don't think anybody's questioned the talent of Tennessee's baseball team. It's been about, okay, well, when things go poorly or if they make mistakes or how Tennessee gets in its own way. And we also saw the performance against Vanderbilt where you can lose that confidence in Tennessee's baseball team. But in this regional, Tennessee has some obvious advantages. I think it's the best team in the regional. It's at home, and it will have a really good chance to get through. How does Tennessee start? That's going to be a big deal. You can make that case every time, but more so this year because we've seen Tennessee in SEC play, I recognize, but get to game 3, and it didn't go well a bunch of times. So if Tennessee goes 1-1 and then all of a sudden is playing catch up and backs are against the wall and you're starting to question yourself a little bit, plus you get to game 3 and Tennessee just hasn't performed well enough and they have been mistake prone, that can get you eliminated quickly. So if Tennessee can get off to a good start, win the first 2 games, then I think it's going to win this regional, get to the Supers. Then at that point, you need to change what's happened the last few months. You need to be able to go win 2 out of 3.
Tennessee now has the 6th best odds to win the College World Series at plus 1,200, behind Arkansas plus 470, LSU plus 650, Vanderbilt plus 650, Texas plus 900, and North Carolina plus 1,000. Excuse me. Interesting notes there. Vanderbilt, of course, Tennessee saw down in Hoover. Tennessee saw just a couple weeks ago. Vanderbilt, to this point, kind of has Tennessee's number. Obviously, good baseball team, got the number 1 overall seed. Arkansas would be the team, likely, at least the Fayetteville Regional, that would match up with the Knoxville Regional and Super Regional play. So I think that's interesting. But Tennessee went from 3rd to 6th after the brackets was unveiled. What do you like about Tennessee's odds? And what do you like about Tennessee's team this time of the year? I think, I know teams are different, but I do think experience talks. And Tennessee's got loads of experience playing in the month of June.
Yeah, well, what I love is that the potential for the bats to explode, that's still there. Putting up 15 in the first game of the SEC tournament, that's a reminder of what they can do. I thought down the stretch, a guy like Levi Clark reminded us what he's capable of doing in the offense. And then you talk about the experience, somebody like Hunter Ensley. And Andrew Fischer was just awesome all season long. So you have somebody like that, that's a difference maker. You have Liam Doyle, who didn't finish on his strongest note here in the last couple of weeks, but we know what he's capable of. So Tennessee at its best can compete with anybody, but 1 through 9, will the bats continue to show up? That's a question I have. Again, the pitching as you extend out games, that's a question that I have. But the potential, I do like, as much as anybody, again, if we're talking about a one-game setting, there's a reason Tennessee has slid, though. What, a month ago, they were first, second, third, tied for first, depending on which sports book you would look at. So Tennessee has slid as the results have not been what were expected, probably, in a couple of those home series against Auburn and Vanderbilt. But I know it's been brought up by a lot of people. I brought it up a few times myself. Ole Miss a couple of years ago, what Florida did last season. I think, Eric, we may have brought it up again. So it's worth pointing out because we've seen it in this sport, and we've seen Tennessee baseball go on runs in the last several years. A couple years ago, now Chase Burns was a big part of it, but that was an elite talent that was able to emerge in the role that he was in. They did what they needed to do at the plate, and they were able to make a run and win a game in the College World Series. So can this team do that? I would say absolutely. They just can't have the mistakes that we've also had to bring up over the last 4, 5, 6 weeks.
Birthday's coming up, so how can we support you and support what you're doing with Second Harvest on your birthday here in a few weeks?
Yeah, thanks for that. So I'm about to turn 40, and that's very exciting. So I've decided to celebrate, Eric, by doing what pretty much everybody does, and that's go run 40 miles in one day. So the date is June 4th. We're going to have the sports animal set up. I'm going to go run at the Greenway at Cherokee Farm Research Park. Beautiful spots, kind of right along the water. You run up along where the UT golf team practices. So I'm going to go log 40 miles in one day. And why am I doing this? There's the personal challenge of it. But the big deal is to try to raise money for Second Harvest Food Bank, which is an organization I care a lot about. And we're now here in the summer months. So school is out. The funds that we raise for this will go to the Food for Kids program this summer. Think about it. Kids who they don't know for sure where their next meal is coming from or how they're going to be fed for a week. Second Harvest steps up. They help serve 18 counties in East Tennessee. So 40 miles, I don't think is going to be the most pleasant experience, Eric. That's my expectation. I do have a former runner, elite runner, Andy Baxa, who ran at UT, ran distance. He is a physical therapist. He's been helping me get ready, but part of that is getting ready for the pain that I'm going to endure. I'm happy to endure pain for a few hours if we can help feed some kids and feed some people here in East Tennessee. So I've given you the link. I've pinned the link at the top of my Twitter profile. If you go there, it's a virtual food drive. So the money you give goes directly to Second Harvest, and they are as good as it gets in making the most out of every dollar.
What a man. Can't wait to watch you attempt the 40 miles. I know you'll probably end up doing that because it's a walk, run. I mean, obviously, you're not going to run.
Yeah, and Andy's helped me with the plan. So we'll see how the legs do. But I run 5 minutes, walk a minute to try to get ahead of the fatigue of my legs, feet, ankles, because as you mentioned, Eric, these are 40-year-old legs now. But yeah, so I've been training, preparing as much as I can over the last few weeks to try to get ready. So June 4th, anybody that wants to come out, it's Greenway. You can come out and join me for a lap, a mile, 100 yards, 40-yard dash, Eric, whatever you want to do if you want to go back to the Carson Newman days.
Yeah.
Everybody's welcome, but any donation, any support to Second Harvest is what it's all about.
Even in the apex of my athletic days, it was 40 yards and 41 yards. But 40 yards, I'm good. Anything within that range. That first 20, that burst. But now that's awesome. Can't wait to watch you. Can't wait to support you. And certainly what you're doing for Second Harvest Food Bank here in East Tennessee's phenomenal work, Josh. So looking forward to that. Thanks as always for joining us here on Ward Wednesday, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, thank you, Eric.
Great stuff as always from Josh Ward. Really appreciate him for joining the show, and really appreciate you guys for being here, making this show what it is here on Locked On Vols. You everydayers couldn't do this show without you. We'll be back tomorrow. Continuing preview coverage of the Knoxville Regional and what's going on in Destin with the spring meetings. A lot of talk from Greg Sankey, from some coaches around the league, some of the bigger problems, college football expansion, 9th game in the SEC. We'll try to get boots on the ground, at least talk to somebody with boots on the ground. That's coming up later this week right here on Locked On Vols. Can't thank you enough for being here. Please subscribe, download the episodes, tell your friends about us. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. This is Locked On Vols.